Let's talk to Georgina Halford-Hall, CEO of Whistleblowers UK, because, of course, they championed the campaign for the Whistleblower Bill, which is due for a second reading in the Commons on the 25th of April. Very good morning to you, Georgina. Welcome. Thanks very much for being with us. I mean, basically, legal action might now be something that is forthcoming from this whole situation. Tell us about that.
Well, let's take it back a step here, because child abuse is nothing new. The successive governments have totally failed all of the children who are being abused in this country, and they've actually abused all of the whistleblowers who are speaking up about it, because there is no shortage. Every week we have somebody from policing, social services, education, even NHS, who are talking to us about how they've raised concerns about the abuse of children or the abuse of vulnerable people. Nothing is happening. So what we really need is a champion of champions, and that should be the Prime Minister, let's face it. And as for what happened last week, Jess Phillips could only have withdrawn that funding and withdrawn that initiative with the consent of the Prime Minister. I actually think that we are going backwards and not forwards at this current moment in time.
Yes. It doesn't feel as though there's any interest, does it, in this government's investigative powers? I mean, they're very happy to run panels and all sorts of investigations into many things. They'll set up an inquiry at the drop of a hat on all sorts of matters, but they just don't want to go anywhere on this one, do they?
No, it isn't. The truth of this is that I just don't believe that politicians care. The church has failed, everyone's failed, and yet they're all sitting happily on their, polishing the seats of Parliament in one way or another. And what they have got is an oven-ready bill, to use the former business secretary's terms, in the whistleblowing bill. It sets out to protect every single citizen. It takes it out of this ridiculous position of going into employment tribunals, where the only thing they're looking for there is, did a whistleblower suffer a detriment? Can we give them compensation? Nobody in over 26 years has investigated a single case that's gone in. So all of those crimes, all of that child abuse, all of that suffering has gone nowhere, and it's left to whistleblowers like myself and all of the wonderful colleagues and people within our organisation to do the job of the government. What we have here is an opportunity to ensure, as Maggie Oliver wants, to hold people to account. We do too. This office will do exactly that. We need one place with statutory powers to protect whistleblowers, to investigate allegations, hold those people to account who are responsible, but more importantly, to educate people so they know what to look for. Every single part of the system that's set up to protect children has totally failed. And we find that the whistleblowers are just shoved into a corner. Hillsborough Law, what have the government done? They made a great big stand. It's coming in. It isn't. The duty of candour is still not in. And the people at Hillsborough Law and the people at Inquest last week were saying we need whistleblowers to be protected too, because even they accept that their work is not going to succeed unless we protect the people who speak out.
But this is the problem with successive governments, isn't it? They're all full of hot air. They promise things until you've sort of left the room. And as soon as you've left the room, they kind of move on to something else. And they go, we'll bother about that again when they come back and knock on the door again. And it must be endlessly frustrating.
Well, they don't even do that. I met with Justin Madders about 3 weeks ago. He hadn't even read the briefing, and he sort of smirked continually through it and dismissed it, saying, but you've got trade unions. Well, let's see all the children go and see a trade unionist. They haven't got any solutions. The last government pretended they did, and they supported this, except they didn't want to do it because they didn't want MPs and senior civil servants to be held to account. If you've got nothing to hide, you're happy to be held to account. Look at all the police officers like Pete Jackson, who are put through years and years of pain in an employment tribunal. Every single time they open their mouth, they talk about the vulnerable child they saw being taken into a known place that rapes children. And nobody's looked at any of that. It's all been denied over and over again. The work that Maggie Oliver is doing is absolutely essential. The work that the Director of Safeguarding at Whistleblower UK does, that's Jane Senior. We've all been arrested. We've all been threatened with policing. It's like the social media catastrophe that's going on. People who speak up in this country, I think social media is a really good example about anything, are now subject to the police coming
Yeah.
round to arrest
Well,
them.
it's as though the police are more concerned with people who have been critical of something that's happened than they are of the thing itself. You know, the fact that more people have now been locked up from the Southport situation over the riots than there have been in the grooming scandals. You know, it just seems a completely upside down situation.
It is, and that's why we need the office of the whistleblower, because that's going to turn it on its head. It shouldn't be about the person speaking up, it should be about the victims. We have to put the victims first, and we have to make the state machinery or give the state machinery the tools it needs to do the job, because quite clearly at the moment it doesn't have those tools. If all of these inquiries are coming in and you see 3 or 4 about child abuse in a certain area, it's going to be obvious that the office of the whistleblower will send in the police immediately and send in other authorities, the people with the power. Whistleblowers are the informed insiders inside all of this. Everyone knows what's going on. Look at Jimmy Savile and the
Yeah.
BBC. It goes on and on and on. How many more scandals is the government prepared to allow to happen without bringing forward legislation that makes sense? This isn't a cost, it's a cost saving. We stop people being injured. We don't then have to pay all of those tens of thousands of pounds afterwards. And look at the criminal justice system on the odd occasion, like with Jane Senior, where she brought forward all of that evidence and had to fight for it to be dealt with. How many years did it take before anyone went to jail?
I
And
know.
thousands and
It's not good
thousands
enough,
of
is it?
children. No, it's absolutely not good enough. So we're going to keep banging on, and we're hoping that that Gareth Snell will be true to his word. He will take forward this bill on the 25th of April this year, and if it doesn't go forward because of assisted dying, that he then puts it back in the list along with many other MPs, including the amazing Tessa Munt, who is championing this, Baroness Kramer, who's championing this, and many others. It's when you become a front bencher that people get amnesia, isn't it?
Yes, that seems to be the trouble. Absolutely. Georgina, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Wish you well with all of it. Georgina Halford-Hall, CEO of Whistleblowers UK, quite rightly saying that, you know, the trouble with politicians is they talk a good game and then they don't do anything. And that's the problem.